Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, and I share my creative process here with you on the internet. If you'd like to support this channel, get additional bonus live streams at least twice a month, get to see my comic book artwork before anybody else, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/GERIMI. For as little as $2 a month, you can support this channel, help keep the public live streams free for everyone else, and get tons of bonus content. If you'd like to see the best of my social media posts, work I post on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, instead of having to follow all those different social networks, just have it delivered right to your inbox, you go to newsletter.jeremy.net. You also get a free digital sketchbook for signing up, and I usually throw in 5 pages of comic books with every newsletter. So you can get a little bonus there, a taste of what I've got going on. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comics, or if you read digitally on Comixology or Amazon Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions you cannot control. Or you can pick up volume 1 of my comic book, Morning Star. It tells the story of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. This is volume 1. It has issues 1 through 4 of an 8-issue series. This is the first half of the story. All those at amazon.jeremy.net. Okay, so let's see here. When last we spoke, I was working on a Medusa piece, and in the process of doing that, my wife saw what I was working on. We actually have an Etsy shop. Let's see, I see Burb in the chat. Hey, Burb, how you doing? Thanks for joining me. I'm just working on an illustration, catching you guys up on what I've been doing for the past week. I'm going to post a link to our Etsy store. It's gypsylilies.com. So yeah, there will be a link in the chat, and I'll put a link in the, in the video description later on. So my wife and I have an Etsy shop, and the stuff that's on there is very different from my comic booky stuff. So it's a little bit of a challenge for me to draw in a cuter style. But she saw the Medusa piece that I was working on, and we have 2 cats. We're cat lovers. She said, you know, why not do a cat as a Medusa with a bunch of mice as instead of snakes for heads? Which I was like, why not? So we did 2 versions. First, this one, which is all like, you know, pure silhouette. And then I drew a second version. And this one is just a headshot. But this is a little goofier, a little crazier. And, you know, I think that it came out well, considering the fact that I don't normally draw in a cute style. It's something that I've had a challenge doing. But, you know, practice, you know, I feel like this one came out better than the one that I did just before it. So, you know, hopefully doing this and kind of develop a secondary style for doing stuff that's more like the cute stuff that's on the shirts. But, oh, let's see. Folks already in the chat. Amaris says I just set up an Instagram business, filling in info on it. That's awesome. Look forward to seeing you post on Instagram. I'll definitely check out your stuff over there. Byron's in the chat. How you doing, man? Thanks for showing up. Burb says, love that. Trevor, Skoll. And you know what? And a happy Memorial Day weekend to you. You know, we're all should be grateful for all the sacrifice for our men and women in military service, those who have fallen to protect this country. So we appreciate your sacrifice, your service. I hope that you know, I don't know what life is like on a military base during Memorial Day, but I don't know whether it's solemn, whether it's celebratory, or whether you guys like. I'm sure that lots of people don't even get a day off because, you know, it's, you know, like police officers, you know, they have to work holidays too. So, but hey, I'm glad you made it for a live stream. So yeah, so I was doing this cartoony Medusa because my wife saw me working on the other Medusa. So let me flip back to the other Medusa. Now, when last we spoke, I had gone in and I had filled out all of this into black. Now, in looking at that the next day, I saw it and I just thought, I feel like the flat black, like inks, I'm missing an opportunity here. And the opportunity is that I feel like this can have a lot more life to it if I put in a lot of texture in that black. So it'll be blacks with, just different colors, really, really dark colors. So when you look at it as a whole, it will appear black. But when you look at it close up, you'll see a variety of brush strokes and textures in there. So what I've been doing is going in and first just refining this sketch, and then going in again, making a copy of that. And I'm just going to go in and darken up some of the line art, because I still feel like I want it to have dark edges. Like I said, I tried with the last Morningstar cover to do it all in color and to make it really feel like a painting and not do line art. And I think that I'm just an artist whose work naturally tends to lend itself to line art. So now I just need to remember what brush I was using to draw this. I think I was using the technical pen. The more I've been using, the more that I've been using Procreate and just dabbling in and trying different types of brushes, the more I now find myself almost getting lost in what brush I'm using at what point. And it really does take a little while for me to get the hang, particularly of drawing really smooth lines. Even when I turn the smoothing way up on a brush, it's a bit of a challenge for me to get nice, long, smooth lines. So let's see here. Yeah, so for this part, at this point, I'm just coming in and trying to refine the line art a little bit. And I'm going to leave a lot of the light sketch marks that are inside there. I'm going to leave a lot of those in the piece because I think that it adds a bit of it adds some texture. It adds some tone to the whole thing. I think that those are things that I can paint over it. Well, part of it is also, originally I drew this so that these were all going to be very, very dark silhouettes, all of the snakes. So I think drawing in a little bit of that texture, I can use this as guidelines so that not just the background will have texture to it, but the snakes will also have a little bit. I don't want to get into the habit of necessarily drawing scales for these because unless I create, well, I could create a scale brush, which if I'm going to be doing a shit ton of Medusa pieces, it's actually not a bad idea. But drawing in all those scales could become one of those things where I'm giving myself a lot of work to do on a piece that on its own could be a fairly quick and simple piece. So I don't want to belabor it, make it more challenging than it needs to be. But, again, this is also fun for me just in terms of experimenting with difference. I think that the challenge here, like I said, I'm going to start developing sort of a quicker, looser style. And I think that this is part of me easing my way into that because this is looser, I think, than my Morningstar stuff. But I also tend to, when I'm doing standalone illustrations or a cover piece or something like that, I think that work tends to be, I tend to draw that a lot tighter than the comic pages. I mean, with the comic pages, you can't sit there and make every panel perfect. For as much as it seems like I really do go nuts and go like on a deep dive of perfectionism, I really don't think that I joke about that because when I compare myself to other artists and look at other comic creators' work, I don't think that my work is that much of me having perfectionism. I feel like I have to put a lot of work in just to get it to a point that I feel like, oh, this is an acceptable level. So for me, this piece is looser than I think I would do for an illustration in the past, but it's definitely tighter than my comic book work. So it's still a bit of a compromise, as it were. Let's see here. Amar's in the chat, says hey to everybody. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you, Amar. I hope that you are having a fun and creative and productive weekend. You know, I didn't get much drawing done over the course of the week, but the reason for that is because, yay, I finally got the final issue of Morning Star off to the printer. So hopefully I will be getting issues in about 2 weeks or so, and I will let you guys know when that's in. I also submitted the final issue to Comixology. And, you know, Comixology, it depends on the year, the time of season. Sometimes they will approve books and get them up on the site in like 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes it might take 2 months. It just really depends on how busy they are, because they actually have to convert every comic submission to the guided view. That takes some time for them. And occasionally I've turned in books where they said, you know what, can you change the color profile on this? Or we need high-res images. And sometimes it was they wanted high-res images and the actual pages that I drew were a little bit gritty. So it looked maybe like it wasn't as high-res as it should be, but it was just, you know, the pages have like a little bit of a rough bitmapped look to them. Regardless, I've got the work off to Comixology. Didn't spend a whole lot of time drawing, so I was just getting some formatting issues taken care of. But now it's off to Comixology, it's off to the printer, and I will let you know as soon as there are pages that are out and available. Let's see here. Trevor says, Skoll, Amar, Burb, Byron, Amaris. Love to the whole crew. We got a full house here today. Amar says, I've been working on a doodle series I'm using for NFT minting. I have 11 pieces. I will do 9 more. I'll spend 30 minutes at most to an hour and a half on them. Says, I'm off next week for vacation. I plan to do some writing next week and work on the next comics issue. I'm also experimenting with using multiple styles. Amar says, so that's what I've been posting on your Discord. That's right. Amar's been sharing a really cool doodle series. And it actually, I noticed that you've got a wide variety of styles on there. So we have a Discord server for members of the Patreon, of which Amar is a supporter. Thank you, sir. And we have a thread on there, a channel on Discord specifically for sharing artwork. In fact, I'm going to post the those kitty illustrations, the Cat Medusa ones that I drew earlier today. I'm going to post those on the Discord sometime this weekend. Meant to do it earlier, but well, hell, I just finished drawing the cats last night, and it was like late last night. I wanted them to be a pleasant surprise when my wife woke up. She'd be like, "Oh, great, we've got some new artwork to put on our shirts." Yeah, this is pretty much just like one of my inking videos traditionally, because I do a lot of moving and twisting and turning around of the page as I go. And I've been trying to spend a little bit more time sketching in Procreate because, much like traditional inks, I built up a lot of my practice in terms of like controlling a brush by drawing thumbnails. Just because I feel like anytime you want to learn how to use a medium, sketching in that medium is the best thing. Hell, you want to learn how to paint? Do oil paint sketches. You know, you want to learn how to use watercolor? Sketch with watercolor. I think that that's a really good method for learning to control a new medium. And to a certain degree, drawing digitally is a new medium for me. Because even though I've been coloring digitally for years, I never quite got the control that I wanted in terms of doing line art digitally. And this is sort of my first foray into really building up that skill set. And it has been promising so far, but I don't expect the way that I draw with brush and ink to just automatically transfer over. I think there's a certain degree to which working with the medium and learning how to get strokes to look like what I want and do what I want. I think that's true in every medium. Is that there's a certain degree of, yeah, some mediums lend themselves to certain types of effects, certain types of looks. And then a certain amount of it is just learning to make the medium do what you want it to do. Because in the end, it is not the tool, it's the hand that controls it. So I may have a very clear idea of what I want a specific illustration to look like, or a certain line art, a certain element within a drawing. I may have a very clear mental picture of what I want it to look like, and then I'll put down marks. I'm like, oh, wait, it did not come out that way. So it's learning how to manipulate whatever the medium is that you're using, digital, traditional, what have you. Let's see here. Scrolling back up to the chat. Oh yeah, Amar says, my character Lilith has a Medusa vibe. I think from my perspective, Medusa had African origins. So she originally had dreads and was so beautiful. She made men speechless and had them under her control. That's my interpretation. Yeah, you know what? I think that's very possible. I've been wanting to do sort of a deep dive in both Greek mythology as well as finding some good books on African mythology. Kind of look at exploring both in both standalone images and maybe in comics in the future. Art of Reed says, hello, gang. And Amar says, yeah, that's why I'm doing sketch painting for the next series of comics. No pencil, ink, just straight painting. He said, what's up? Byron says there's always going to be a degree of translation that has to be made. It's just figuring out what those translations are. Very, very true. Very, very true. Yeah, I think when you look at an artist who has a very signature style, like let's say somebody like Bruce Timm, I think if you see Bruce Timm doing a pencil sketch versus a marker sketch versus a painting, I don't know if he paints, but considering how great of an artist he is, it would not surprise me if he's got some paintings he's done as well. But you see his style in the composition, in the way that elements are described, whether it's faces, hands, body types, all of that comes through. That's the thing where that's just the natural skill of the artist. Like I really don't know, or I don't think that my illustrations, my color illustrations would feel that much different from my pen and ink stuff, my pencil sketches. digital painting. Of course, I haven't done much watercolor in a long time. One of the things, and it might seem like a waste of time, but one of the things I kind of want to do is do the same piece in multiple mediums. So like I'm doing this as a digital piece, but to come back and also do one as a pencil sketch and watercolor it. And then also maybe do the same piece in charcoal pencil. I'm getting a little heavy-handed with the brush lines here. I should turn down both the opacity and the size a little bit. Although part of the reason why I was going heavy-handed is not heavy-handed, but the brushes are larger and the inks are darker, so I can try and force my hand to go lighter. I don't think it'll really throw things off too much that these last couple of ones I just drew on the top have darker outlines, because it is just the holding line. But what I want to do is develop a range of sensitivity. Because one of the things I notice a lot of artists talk about, whether you're drawing traditional or digital, hand injuries. And I think a large portion of hand injuries that artists develop come from pushing too hard on whatever surface they're drawing and gripping their pencil or their stylus too hard. So what I'm trying to do is get it where, you know, I can go from thick to thin to thick to thin. And what I'm trying to do is get it so that when I'm drawing, like my hand is just barely gliding on the surface to get the lines that I want. I think that's actually why I beefed up the size there, so that I can keep my hand pressure really light. And I think I forgot that for a moment and just started drawing kind of heavier. So I want my hand pressure to always be light. And also when I'm gripping the stylus, like I am like, I've got it here just resting on my my ring finger. And really, I'm almost just using these three fingers to just sort of keep it in balance. So I've got it here between my index and my index and middle finger, my thumb, but I'm not pressing down, I'm not squeezing it, I'm not pinching it. I'm trying to do all of that lightly, because that's something that I have trained my hand to do with traditional media, so that I'm not gonna, you know, I'll be less likely to develop carpal tunnel. That's the plan. I mean, we'll see how I am after drawing for a decade of drawing, another decade of drawing, see what happens with my hands. But I really feel like it makes a big difference in terms of both holding this lightly and not pressing down with my hand. So I realized, yeah, as I was going through here, I'm like, oh wait, those lines are getting too thick. And I realized that that's because I am pressing digitally as opposed to sticking with what I was trying to do before, which is just really light tones. And if I want a thick line, I don't have to use very much pressure to get it. That's what I'm trying to develop. I'm trying to train my hand to have the same level of sensitivity on a digital device as it has on a traditional device. So part of this is just developing some motor skills and developing like kind of biofeedback between myself and the tablet. Let's see. Amar says, also, when you use a softer tool, pen pressure, or easy applicable tool, it forces you to have a light touch. So I've been drawing in some way for almost, I've been drawing, I think we're gonna say in the same way for almost 5 decades. Not as a pro, but I have no hand problems ever. See, that's smart. I didn't figure out that I needed to draw lightly. Really, it wasn't until I started inking with a brush. Like I've always been heavy-handed. Not, you know, it was figure drawing class. That's what it was. I have always been heavy-handed, and it wasn't until I started taking figure drawing classes that I saw, oh wait, well, it was because I was using charcoal pencil. And that was my first time using charcoal pencil regularly. I'd used it before, but it was the first time that I was like, oh, I'm using this all the time. And I knew that I was heavy-handed, but it was really pronounced when working with charcoal pencil. And some people went the other way, where they would say, all right, I want to have things lighter, so I am going to use a harder pencil. So they would switch to like using an HB charcoal pencil, or or even a 2H. They would get lighter touch. For me, I did the opposite. The way I trained myself to have a light touch was I used the dark. I started drawing in figure drawing class after when I first switched from just graphite pencils to charcoal pencils. I started with a range. I got like a bunch, some HBs, some 2Hs, 4Bs, 6Bs, and after trying a few different things, I started using 6B, which is the darkest. I've heard that there is an 8B, but I've never really looked into it. But 6B is really, really dark. It's almost like drawing with a Sharpie if you press hard. If you press hard with a 6B charcoal pencil, you'll come in. It's like you can't erase that completely. It's just dark. It's there. But it helped me develop a really, really light touch. I was using this very dark material, and to get like light strokes, I had to work really, really hard. And at a certain point, after I think I had really lightened up my touch, I realized, oh wait, I really do need to move to like 4 and 2Bs to do subtler work. But for a while, drawing was something that was almost like inking in figure drawing. It really helped me just lighten up my touch. So now I am repeating that same process here digitally. Hold on, I'm going to lower the opacity on this a little bit. And it's also weird because I kind of have to figure out, like I said, my drawings are going to look like my drawings no matter what. But I do feel like to a certain degree, I have to figure out what exactly I want this digital look to be. Because I could do this exact same process that I'm doing, but do it with the brush that I use for inking instead of this sketching brush. And it'll give me a different look. Be a little bit more crisp, a little bit more comic booky. Whereas this, even though there are pencil tools in Procreate that are really good, this feels to me like what my drawings in pencil tend to feel like. Let's see here. Trevor says, I think more artists don't maintain any levels of fitness. I think that weighs into their injuries later in life. Yeah, I have heard about a lot of artists having back problems from being at the drawing table all day, 8 hours a day. So, I don't have it set up for my drawing table, but for my computer table, I have a standing desk. And I think if there's ever a point where I'm doing comics full time, I'm going to have to get a standing drawing setup. Right now, working digitally, I don't necessarily have to have that, but I definitely alternate between standing and sitting throughout the day. And also, a couple of years ago, I started doing yoga regularly, 2 or 3 times a week. And I think that helps with building. And the main thing I focus on is core, just working on keeping my core strong, my back muscles, my ab muscles, not about being ripped, because they are not, but, just keeping my core strength so that, as I age, hopefully my body will continue to function at a reasonable degree, a survivable degree. I was showing my wife some pictures of me that my mom found when I went to visit her for Mother's Day. My mom had like a whole bunch of photos she gave me from our whole childhood. My whole childhood, just photos of the family, some old photos that she had gone through and cleaned out like an old box full of photos. And there were some photos of me from high school. and I was looking at like the shape that I was in back in high school. I was running track and field, and I was like, damn, I wish I was in that kind of shape. Like, I would kill to have the abs I had in high school. But you know what? You can't stop time. All you can do is take care of yourself. Try to maintain your health and your fitness now. But yes, point being in that little tangent is Trevor. Yes, I completely agree. Artists, I think, really don't. I mean, we talked about this, I think, in the last live stream about how, being an athlete, I think, helps prepare you for art in terms of getting your ass kicked all the time. A lot of artists don't tend to be the most jock-like, athletic, physical competition type. But there's a certain degree of learning that will definitely help us just in terms of like health maintenance, getting us through life. So let's see here. Amar says, I've been lucky then because I have not worked out since the late 90s. The only issue was bad posture from a lower back issue. So I was way more flexible and had a really strong core lower back. So I missed one thing. I no longer dance with the same energy I once did. Who does? That definitely gets us over time. Negro Frazetta's in the chat. What up, man? Thanks for rolling in. Well, Amar, I'll tell you, I hope that trend continues in terms of you having a lot of in terms of maintaining your health. For me, I noticed, because I also have I'm not diabetic, but I do have like high blood sugar. And I noticed that when I have high blood sugar and high blood pressure. And I noticed that when I started going for walks twice a day, just like, 20, 30-minute walks, it really helped bring my my blood pressure back down. So the walks and the yoga, plus I get on the elliptical, I will tell you that getting back into some sort of physical routine, even if you're not like a gym rat, that made a big difference for me in terms of my level of energy. In fact, if I wake up in the morning and I'm really groggy and tired, like on the weekend, yesterday was a perfect example. I woke up and, it was a Saturday. I knew I could just, roll out of bed and go draw, but my brain just had sort of that morning brain fog. And so instead of jumping right to the drawing table, I got up and went for like a walk, a little bit of a longer walk, went for like 30, 40 minutes. And then I came back and my mind was alert and clear and sharp, and I was ready to dive in and make some art. So I think that, true, you're talking just about dancing, but energy levels in general, I think, can be really increased by a little bit of exercise. And like I said, I didn't go for a jog. I didn't go running or biking, which I do have a bike and I should bike more. But just the act of going for a walk, it both helps wake me up, and I think it really is mentally stimulating. Like that same thing of like, you tend to get ideas whenever, like, I always joke that I get all of my ideas whenever I go to the bathroom. But it is true. There's something about that isolated, quiet space that lets the brain, chew on problems. The same thing happens when I go for walks. And I don't know if that's true for the rest of you guys, but yeah, just physical movement, going for a walk, going for a jog, what have you. I find that if I have an art problem or a writing problem, it's really great for writing. If I'm working on something and the writing just isn't quite coming, going for a walk is great for that. So there are tons of benefits to physical activity for artists, health-wise and creatively. That's what I'm getting at here. Watch me turn it into a health guru here. No, I'm just saying that along with taking care of ourselves, it can still also have those creative benefits that I think the creative benefits are what's more likely to get an artist to exercise than the health benefits. But whatever gets you moving, I think is worthwhile. Let's see here. Verb says, here and now is what truly matters. I think that's true. We can't change the past. All we can do is control what we're doing now and how we take care of ourselves now, how we treat other people and how we treat ourselves. So it is good to just take that and do something good with it for ourselves and the people around us. Amar says, funny thing is, I've always had low blood pressure versus high. I didn't even know that was a thing. And he says, speaking of bathroom, I may start a show or a channel where I can do a clip where I doodle while on the toilet, and where each episode you enter the bathroom and the outro is the toilet flushing. I don't know how well that will go over, but hell, go for it, man. What's interesting is I'm looking at this and I am seeing right now the fact that this compositionally, the snake that I'm drawing on the right-hand side that's going off of the screen, I think that snake works really well compositionally there. But I realized that if I had just enough space so I could draw the rest of him, I could totally clip out this whole Medusa illustration and put it on a shirt. And I think that what I will do is when I have the color version completed, I will trim out the whole thing, put it on a separate, like, fresh canvas, and then I'll just center the whole piece. Instead of having the blank space that's on her left side, I will center the whole piece and just draw in the rest of the serpent to fill out that. And I will make it a t-shirt. Beef up this brush size. Okay. Let's see here. Byron says, doodling and doo-doo. Amar says, it may be funny, entertaining, all while creating some great art. Well, hell, man, go for it. I think while I may generate a lot of great ideas in the bathroom, I'm probably a little too shy to want to do a live stream while in the bathroom. I mean, I think I overshare enough as it is here. All right, bring that brush size down. A little bit of detail in the face, and then I think I'll start throwing some color on this. I don't know if I actually even need those little lines I started putting in there. Oh, little coffee break. Negro Frazetta says, that page in the Walt Reed helped me so much. In Art Book Study Group, we went back to Walt Reed's The Figure, and there was one page in there where he basically does a summary of the basics of form and volume. And, I was telling Negro Frazetta that in the end, it all comes down to the fundamentals of drawing. because once you look at developing anatomy, drawing vehicles, all of the other working in different mediums, all of that I think stems from having a strong foundational understanding of the fundamentals. And I had never noticed before, because I was recommending a particular like pages, and Walt reads the figure, like pages 20 through 45, I think really do get to the essence of what the fundamentals are. But I found that at the end of that section, he's got one page where he just recaps form and volume. So he doesn't get into light and tone in the section I'm talking about. But he is just talking about understanding form and volume. And he has one page that in my mind encapsulates the form and volume part of the fundamentals, the most essential parts of drawing and trying to create a convincing three-dimensional object. And so that's what he's referring to. And I my whole point was telling him that if the goal is to just improve one's basic draftsmanship, that just studying those that particular page really keys in on, I think, what a lot of artists are pursuing in understanding the fundamentals. And like I say, I myself am still a student of the fundamentals. I am always trying to learn and grow and expand my skill and mastery over them. So anyway, point being, Negro Fazetta, I'm very glad that that studying those pages was helpful to you, and I hope that it's something that you stick with, because I told you the reason why I keep saying that I continue to be a student of the fundamentals is because I haven't mastered them, and I think that you'll learn as you go through that it's similar to yoga or playing chess. You get better. But as you get better, you learn more depth, and you learn that the things you thought you understood, that there's layers of depth beneath just, drawing in 3 dimensions, keeping things in proportion, drawing through the form. You start learning that there's subtleties and refinements within that just go deeper and deeper. So those things, that's why the fundamentals, the study of them never ends. Like every single drawing is another adventure in expanding your learning and proficiency in the fundamentals. I have to adjust her lips a little bit because I want the upper lips to appear a little narrower, only in that her head is tilted down. So I want more of the lower lip exposed. See here. Amar, this is back to the doodling and doo-doo. Amar says, so many crazy TikTok ideas going over and other social media. Hey, you might want to check if doodling and doo-doo is taken as a username. Get an extra username for it. The page, Negro Frazetta posted in there, the page in Walt Reads the Figure that we're talking about is page 44. Jocelyn Short says, hello, this is my first time catching your live stream. I wanted to let you know that the links in your description do not work, in case you weren't aware. I did not know that the links do not work. I'll have to get in there and see why that's happening. That is odd. I thought that they did work. Now, do you mean that they're just not active links, like you click on them? Or do you mean if you copy and paste them that they don't go to the pages that they say they do? either way, I'm gonna have to get in there and figure out what's going on. But I appreciate you letting me know. Thank you. Thank you very much. There's tons of videos in there that I've been putting those descriptions on there, and I guess I've been doing it wrong somehow. Yeah, if anybody else happens to notice what's up with the descriptions, the links in the descriptions, definitely let me know what's if you know how to make them active links, please please do mention, because obviously I need all the help I can get. And now, see, we are in that challenging phase for me of learning how much detail is the right amount of detail. How much more do I want to put in here before I start painting? And probably not a whole lot more. You know, the other thing I notice that I do have to be careful about when I'm drawing digitally is when I use my hand to move around the page, when I'm just sliding from one area to the other, occasionally I will leave stray, like just now. Okay, there's some marks in here and I don't know when I put them, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. Right in here at some point, I put these marks, this little mark that I'm erasing, just by grabbing the screen and moving it around. And I have to be careful of that, because a lot of times I don't notice that I do it, and then I move on and just keep drawing. So I can't just undo and go back. If I catch myself right when it happens, then I just undo and get rid of them. But if I've moved on and I've drawn a bunch of other stuff, then all I can do is just erase around those marks. So fortunately, I've got a little, stylus glove, and that keeps me from, I can rest my hand on the screen and not worry about making marks that way. But when it comes to actually putting my fingers on the screen to actively, grab and move the image around, rotate it and such, sometimes, depending on the way I grab it, it doesn't register as a grab and it registers as a brush stroke. And that can be problematic. Let's see. That is odd. Byron says Patreon seems to 404, but the newsletter seems fine for me. He said try closing the /Jeremy. So I think that's what I need to do. I think it just has my name, doesn't have a slash after it. So I need to add that. Jocelyn says I can click on them, but the links don't go where they need to. And he said, Byron says closing the /Jeremy works. And Jocelyn says the only link that seems to work for me is your Amazon affiliate link. It might be that I just need to go through and add slashes to the end of each of these. Like I'm looking at the sticky note that I pulled the links from. Yeah, I just need to go in and put slashes at the end of all of these. So I appreciate you guys telling me that. I feel like a dumbass because I've been posting these for the better part of a year. And it took a long time for me to go through. And I guess that's going to be my my part-time project, is just going through all of the old videos and correcting the links. Oh, man, that's going to suck. Well, not really. I mean, it's just copy, paste. But, it's not like I don't have enough to do, and I'd rather be spending my time drawing. But I would never have noticed that if you guys hadn't pointed that out. So thank you so much, Jocelyn. Byron, thank you for checking on that and letting me know that the closing the links seems to work. So I'm going to go through and test the rest of those later on and make some corrections. So I appreciate the help, you guys. It is nice to be supported, to have people that are actually checking stuff and saying, hey, man, in case you didn't know, some of your shit's broken. because I just would have gone on and on and on, live streaming and posting videos without making any corrections. Now, here's an interesting conundrum. I don't want this to be a tangent, so I do want her neck to be connecting a little bit underneath the cheekbone, which means I need to push this cheek out a little bit, bring this connecting line, bring her neckline in just a little bit. So if you can see what I'm talking about, right here, I faintly have the neckline going there, and it's lining up too much in terms of creating a tangent. Like you can't necessarily tell that there's a separation between one line and the other. So I just need to fix that a little bit, which makes her neck a little bit thinner than I want it, but I'd rather have that and not create a tangent. So and this is one of those weird things as I'm going along where I will look at stuff and in my mind, for me, it may personally bother me that I made the neck thinner than I originally designed it, and that I also had a tangent in the original rough drawing. But this is one of those things where I realize that I'm mainly the only person that's seeing that. I think that if I left the tangent there, people would notice the tangent. But I think the correction I did in terms of making the neck a little bit thinner, that's one of those that I think part of it is doing artwork, doing designs where I'm collaborating with my wife, and I'm seeing that there's things that it's okay if I don't make the thing perfect. That I'm the only one who's really fussing about that particular element. So that is an element, that's something that I think I'm slowly getting better at in terms of perfectionism. Being able to look at something like that and say, all right, that's not perfect, but it's okay. And Jocelyn said, happy to help. I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see here. Now, this is something interesting in that I know that the eyes of these snakes, let's see, there I go, leaving marks on the screen. I know the eyes of these snakes should not be round and facing forward. The eyes on snakes tend to be towards the side of the head. They don't really point forward. But in order for this to have the effect that I want it to, that's turn this off and turn the original sketch back up in terms of opacity. You know, the whole point is I wanted all of the snake eyes to be like little eyes glowing out of the darkness, kind of looking at you. And I don't know if it has that same effect when the eyes are on the sides of the head as opposed to the front. So I've kind of cheated all of them and had them facing more frontward. So that is something that I'm trying to reckon with as I'm sketching this in. And my paranoia, I drop the opacity and lock it again so I don't draw on the sketch layer. Let's see. Amar says, since things are opening back up, do you plan to go to any comic conference or conventions anytime soon? Well, no, but the reason for that is not just because of COVID. It's because I was going through a period where I was making less and less money at shows. And I felt like a big part of that was that I didn't have, wasn't bringing any new books that often. And it got to the point where I was only going to go to shows that I was, seemed to be making a good profit at, which was really just WonderCon in LA and I skipped it last year, but I had been going to amazing Las. Well, everybody skipped shows last year, but the year before quarantine, I used to go to the amazing Las Vegas convention that Jimmy J puts on. But I think for a while I decided I was just going to go to shows in LA and focus on trying to get comics done. And coming back into this new year, I'm not going to dive back into doing a lot of shows. I think that I'm going to stick with WonderCon and maybe like one other show. And I'm almost going to treat it like building from the ground up. You know, WonderCon is my home base show. It's the one that I've been doing the most consistently. And I found that while my sales would be higher in shows that I traveled to, I also would, you know, the expense of the hotel, even if I was splitting it with a friend, the travel expense, it ended up not necessarily offsetting the profits were lower because even though I sold more, I had more expenses. So coming into things opening back up again, I'm going to take it easy and I'm going to focus more on just producing work. And if a good show comes up that's local, I may check it out. I've never done Designer Con, which, I mean, admittedly, it's illustration in general. It's and toy design and product design. It's not necessarily, even though comic creators do show there, it's not necessarily a comic show. But I've never done Designer Con, and I've heard a lot of great things about it. Actually, I did Designer Con the very, very first year that it existed in the Pasadena Convention Center, and it was a very, very different show from what it's become now. From what I've heard, it is very much in line with something like WonderCon, and they have it at the Anaheim Convention Center, like WonderCon. So no, I'm not planning to just jump right back into doing shows again. For ages, I've been talking about starting to run a Kickstarter, and I'm just trying to decide. It's weird that I'm still on the fence about it, but whether I want the first Kickstarter campaign I do to be about to be for the process edition of Morningstar, where I've got all of the sketches, all of the thumbnails, all of the process work, the script, like everything that went into it, and just do like almost a trade, like 100-page version of each issue. Or whether I want to do that book that I was going to have on my outlining process. Basically that book that's a spin-off of my video on writing comics. Both of those are things that I've been thinking about doing. Well, I've been thinking about putting up, I know I want to put up books of those. I've been wanting to for a while now. But in terms of doing a Kickstarter campaign, I have not decided which one I want to do first. And the nice thing about doing the Morningstar one is I can just do volume 1. You know, hopefully it funds and goes well. And then if people like that, do volume 2, volume 3, volume 4. And only do the process edition for the Kickstarter campaign, since the individual issues are already out and existing. Make that kind of a special thing just for Kickstarter. I don't know, what would you guys, I'm thinking about trying to take some of that energy that I would put into shows and put that into running Kickstarter campaigns. What would you guys like to see from me as something that would be kickstarted? A process edition of Morningstar with all the sketches, or my outlining book? But I think that my greater idea, not an idea, but my greater feelings and philosophies about conventions is that I felt after many years of doing conventions, I wasn't any closer to doing personal art full time, but it still takes a lot of prep time and a lot of energy to do these shows. And if I'm not getting closer to being able to do my own work full time, then maybe the goal should be less about doing more conventions and it should be more about producing more work. So that is my idea in general, is I want to put my energy towards making more art, spending more time writing, making more art, figuring out how to produce comics faster, and then try to make as many ways for my audience to support me as possible. The Patreon, Kickstarters, and again, once I get my links fixed, having links in every video so that if there's stuff that I make that you guys want to check out, I mean, hell, I probably need to check if that link that I put for my wife and I, our Etsy shop, should probably check and make sure that link works, because I didn't close the URL / at the end on that either. I'm curious, out of everybody that's in the chat, how many of you actually go to comic conventions, whether it is as exhibitors or just going as fans? I mean, that's another thing that I found that I found that I started having a hard time enjoying going to conventions just to enjoy the convention, because I felt like if I'm at a show, if I'm not at my drawing table drawing, then I should be making money at the show. I'm starting to turn to a little bit of a Christopher Walken. I should be making money at the show. And I found it hard to just enjoy going and looking at creators' work and talking with other people and going to panels. One show that I want to go to as a fan is the Lightbox Expo, because I did not go the first 2 years, and I've heard nothing but wonderful things about it. And that's one of those shows where I'm not looking to get into animation or concept art. So, and that's what the big, the large number of people that are going there for is people going into game design, film design, any type of entertainment illustration. But it's a learning environment. And that's what I am really intrigued by and interested in, is that there's so many people there who are great art educators and people who are students of illustration and visual storytelling. And I'm intrigued and interested in going to participate as someone who, like I said, lifelong student. I never want to stop learning and growing and expanding my skill. And I really should have gone that first year, because it's in LA and I live in LA. So just having a great show that you don't have to worry about travel expenses for. But I think at the same time, I was, wrapping up issue 7 of Morningstar. And I was already going through that period where I was saying I was going to go to fewer shows. And I felt like, in my mind, I felt like I couldn't justify taking time off from work to go to that show, because it wasn't a show I was exhibiting at. But if I had exhibited, I would have done what I do at every show I'm exhibiting. I never leave my table. Except to go get food and go to the bathroom. I work, I not work because I don't do commissions at shows anymore. I'm just selling work all day long and talking to people about my art and promoting it. And then when I'm done, I'm so exhausted, I just want to go back home and get some rest and rest up for the next day. And I think that I probably would have missed out on all of the things that make Lightbox sound interesting to me, which is just going to panels, sketching, talking to other artists, I mean, yeah, I'd bring copies of my comic to share to people. If the same way that people would bring their portfolio, for me, it would be less like, oh, I'm trying to get work or promote myself, and more like when you talk with other artists, you're like, oh, well, what kind of stuff do you do? What are you into? What's your art look like? What are your influences? The kind of stuff that you just shop talk with other artists. Like, I don't know if you guys do this, but when I'm hanging out with new artists, it's whenever somebody says, hey man, can I look at your sketchbook? There's always that certain thing of like, we're shy because we feel like we're gonna get judged. But it is always cool when artists just sit around and just hand each other their sketchbooks and look at their work and look what they're doing. Like, oh man, this is badass. How'd you get this effect? I really dig this design. Like all of those positive things that come from in-person interactions, And then you realize, I shouldn't worry. That's why I tell people, don't worry so much about the fear and the judgment and other people like, saying bad things about your artwork. Because for the most part, we're all pretty encouraging, And if, my whole thing is if I see somebody that are doing something and it's not necessarily great work, what I might do is say, hey, have you ever checked out this other artist? They seem like they're doing the kind of stuff that you're going for. You should check them out and make it less about me criticizing them and just saying, hey, I see what you're trying to do. Here's something that might help you do that. But it's not me saying, oh, your art's bad. Let me fix it for you. And I think that's the attitude that, I find that I encounter when I'm at in real life arts exhibitions and interactions and conventions. Oh, Kingslow Fitness in the chat. And he said conventions tend to be crowded, having to go into rotations around people in the booths. I remember last bringing my daughter. It is nice when you can bring the family. Like my wife will usually go with me to shows, and it depends on the convention scene, because some shows she's really enjoyed going and some shows she's like, oh, it's exhausting, I want to be at home. But she also she is there to help me, and she'll help me run the table, but she does like being able to walk the floor and see like the cool different fashions and cool costumes and buying cool weird nerdy shirts. Like she got me this. I saw her wearing a shirt that she bought this shirt that has a unicorn, but he's vomiting and he's vomiting a rainbow. And I laughed my ass off. I thought it was awesome. So she went and got me the same shirt in a men's. So I think the convention we went to, we posted that on Instagram, a photo of us wearing our shirts, and we said the couple that pukes together stays together. But that's really what my wife likes, is getting a lot of the pop culture fashion stuff and just finding cool toys, cool purses, and just cool, fantasy art and merch and art prints. Byron says, it's always hard for me to justify going to conventions. It's very expensive, and the travel costs are usually a killer for me, but I do enjoy them. I am fortunate in terms of living in Southern California that there are a lot of shows here, and I think what I really should do is I should start making more time to get back in the habit of going to a show just as a fan. I don't need to get a table, and it's not necessarily about, oh, I need to sell some work. Just go and we've got like the Long Beach comic convention out here. We've got Comikaze. I have never done Anime Expo, but part of that is also because that one really sells out and is super crowded. And I don't, like, for instance, San Diego Comic-Con. I continue to maintain that it is, there's a reason why it's so hard to get into. It is a great, great show. It's the mecca of comic conventions. People travel all around the world to come to it. That said, I've gone so many times. Like, I've gone since I was in high school. I've gone so many times that now I don't necessarily want to go through the chaos of just trying to get the parking. And a long time ago, I stopped staying for the weekend. I would usually just go on one day, preferably not on the weekend when it's the most crowded. I still think it's an amazing show, but it's just that there's so much in terms of like how congested San Diego is, and the traffic, the long car ride, getting parking, the long lines to get in. But the beauty of it, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love WonderCon, because WonderCon, it's run by the people that run San Diego. It's like going to San Diego without the same level of traffic, without the same level of congestion. I mean, and WonderCon gets crowded. It's a big show. But, I mean, hell, it was my favorite show even when it was in San Diego. I mean, not San Diego, in San Francisco. It used to be in the Bay Area. And it's funny because it's been in LA for so long now that people just think of it as an LA show. It's been in LA, I think, longer than it's been in San Francisco at this point. I don't quote me on that. I'm just ballpark guessing from the number of times I did it in San Francisco, but I don't know. That may be completely false. I'm just talking. But I really do enjoy that show because it has the all of the upsides of San Diego without the same level of travel and traffic and difficulty of, like, even getting a hotel is much easier to get because it's down by Disneyland. It's surrounded with hotels. It's way easier than trying to do get a hotel at San Diego. But you know, we've got the Long Beach Comic Con out here. There's I'm not sure if they still call it the Stanley Comic Convention, but it's the LA Comic Convention. It used to be Kamikaze. It's gone through a lot of names. There's that show. You know, there's lots of smaller events in the area where I live, and I'm very fortunate for that. And what I'm thinking is that maybe I need to stop focusing so much on doing the shows as an attendee and just going and having fun. Maybe doing a panel or something. I could reach out to the organizers, maybe come up with an interesting panel. If there's, you know, if I were going to go to a comic convention, what do you guys think would make a good panel for me to do a topic on? Because I could also start pitching conventions and just go there with not even get a table. Go for one day, you know, do a workshop or something, and then, you know, enjoy the rest of the show and come home. And I think that might be better for my health and productivity. When I say my health, I mean my mental health, in terms of just not focusing so much on, oh, I've got to make this show a profitable show and make my money back. And spending a whole weekend that I could have been staying home drawing. Instead, it's not the whole weekend. It's just one day. And even in that day, the goal isn't necessarily about selling. It's about connecting with people. And then I spend the rest of the day just enjoying the show. To me, that's what I mean in terms of my my health, is just finding a way to do it that's more enjoyable and not the same stress of the business and profitability that I think stresses out a lot of comic creators when they do conventions. Let's see here. Let's see here. Byron says, reignite that passion that made you want to get into it. Trevor says, in terms of San Diego, lost its focus, too much Hollywood, not enough comics. And he says, makers workshop with small press guys talking to other makers. That's an interesting idea. I think that there's a lot of people already doing panels about being indie creators. So I don't know if there's one that maybe there's one that I could participate in, but I don't know if it's necessarily the kind of thing where I'm the guy that they would come to and say, oh, you're going to host a panel on this topic. My understanding is that for most conventions, if you're going to host a panel, you have to bring an interesting angle. Then you have to, it's like being a journalist in terms of you're pitching your article to your newspaper. It's, you know, pitching a panel topic to the convention organizers, and hopefully it is something that they're like, oh yes, we definitely know our audience is going to want to attend this panel, and that's how they decide who gets panels, who runs them. but I see that topic in terms of like indie creators wanting to talk to other indie creators. I think I can expand on that. I may not. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be doing it this year or even next year, but I can think about what would be some topics that I can bring to the discussion of indie creation, and maybe get some interesting people to show up for those panels. In fact, that might be something to talk about with the Coffee and Comics gang, because now that things are starting to open back up again, we are probably going to get together sometime soon. So let's see here. By the way, we're a little bit over an hour here, so I think I'm going to just answer these last. I'm going to check in with the last couple of comments here in the chat, and if anybody has any other questions you want to throw at me, throw them at real quick, and then we're going to close out this episode. Kingslow Fitness says you did help me get back into Bridgman studies in addition to going further with research. So Bridgman studies. Yeah, hey, that's an idea. And I think anyone, maybe I could do a panel about reference rot and about learning to use reference. Almost like, that's what I could do. Art book study group. The thing that we do for Patreon, we could do an art book study group for a convention. That is something that I might bring a couple of my favorite art books. I would need to really narrow down my my discussion, where I would have like maybe George Bridgman, Andrew Loomis, Walt Reed. Or maybe Bridgman and Loomis, and maybe the Ken Holtzgren book, because we've been doing some animal drawing too. The point is to maybe have it where if I can get it down to like a tight, like in an hour's presentation, 15 minutes on each book for a 45-minute presentation, and then open it up at the end for a discussion and Q&A. That might be an idea. That is something that I could pitch to a convention. All right. Well, you know what? I mean, that's been really helpful. Guys, I don't say this often enough. I see Doghouse is in the chat. He says, just want to say hi and see you guys next Sunday. But I don't say this often enough, that the feedback that I get from you guys while I'm drawing, not just about my artwork and process, but in terms of like things that I'm thinking about expanding or trying different things with my artwork, or things that I think would be, just telling me what you guys think would be helpful to other artists, or the things that you do enjoy that I'm doing on the video and the channel, or things that I do and you're like, maybe you should lean away from that. That back and forth for a creator, for any of us, you guys know that feeling of sometimes you feel like you're just out alone in the void making artwork and just throwing out to the universe and there's no voices answering back. I think we all have that feeling. And you guys, the feedback, the connection that we have every week when you guys come and you hang out and we talk, I feel like, okay, these are the voices out in the void answering me back. And that's, I think you guys, I don't know if I convey enough how much you guys give me when you guys show up for these live streams. Or even like, there's lots of people who leave comments throughout the weeks on different video, and I always try to go back and answer all of them. So that alone, alone helps a lot. But yeah, I really do appreciate you guys and this conversation, all the conversations we have. I really thought I would get to throwing the color work in here, but I just got so caught up in refining the snakes a little bit, and refining the face. So this piece, you know, it's coming along slowly, but I am happy with it, you know. So let's wrap it up for here. And now back to the main screen. Okay, everybody. So again, if you want to check out Art Book Study Group, if you haven't seen it before, for as little as $2 a month, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/GERIMI. And I'm going to add another slash to that link in the description. Again, you get see my comic book art before anyone else. Comic book pages are posted there. Bonus live streams that are Patreon exclusive twice a month. I have been meaning to post more clips from the Art Book Study Group, like taking 5-minute clips here and making those public just so you guys can check those out. I need to get back into that habit. Newsletter.jeremy.net. You get a free digital sketchbook for signing up, and then I send a newsletter once a month with comic pages in it, best of my social media posts, work in progress animated GIFs, and just little updates on what I'm working on throughout the month. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comics, or read digitally on Comixology or Amazon Kindle, go to amazon.jeremy.net. That's amazon.gerimi.net. You can pick up my book, I Had the Gods, psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. It is a self-contained, done-in-one graphic novel. Volume 1 of my comic book Morning Star, it's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. This has issues 1 through 4 of the 8-issue series, Volume 1. Check all of those out. And again, guys, thank you so much for showing up. All of the great conversation and feedback and comments, I greatly appreciate it. That's it for now. Go be creative.